What's up, nerds? Own Goal here. Today I'm going to be bringing you a video explaining a pretty unconventional Skaven strategy, mass globes, and also how to deal with opponent openers that are really heavily indexed on OP cavalry. So right now, Hellstriders on this patch are one of the best units in the game. Sometimes people take a whole lot of them because they're so good and they just kind of run you over. The overall unit composition of our opponent's walk army is definitely one of the high A tier, low S tier things folks can do right now. They've got Archaon, bunch of Hellstriders, efficient units, and then a bunch of Forsaken. Um, we're taking the Skaven roster with 5 globes. The principle behind the 5 globes is that we want to have a threat overload, so they can only shut down so many of these, and globes do a crazy amount of damage per gold. So our overall damage output from range on this roster is extremely high. So looking at the unit, it has pretty good explosive AP damage and a relatively high model count for units that do that. The dot on this ability barely does anything. So mostly they're just like explosive ranged infantry. And we've deployed them in this formation where they can mutually support each other pretty well. So kind of like a somewhat flat checkerboard, and they're checkerboarded so that if we put them in a line, there isn't a lot of mutual support. And if we put them like more stacked, it's easy to get on top of them. So this is a way to have like a relatively ovular area that maximizes the distance between these things while having them be covered by infantry and gives them intersecting cones of fire. And what we're trying to do is just outstat the enemy. Walk up and basically kill them. The Warlock Master here, it's an okay lore choice. It's a little speculative. We're actually just trying it out. We have a little bit of like a combo here with the Plague Claw. So the Plague Claw spikes their leadership. We spam leadership debuffs with Musk of Fear, and it routes stuff off. But this is a little speculative. You could drop any lord in, and this comp is functionally the same. In the opener, we see that he's taken a whole lot of cavalry. And we want to avoid getting overextended and getting into a big fight in the center. And instead, what we're choosing to do is play a little bit slower, capture our point, and summon a bunch of infantry and anti-cavalry options. And then we can take the fight when he's not able to run over our like all-in hyper DPS build. Alternately, we could have pushed straight out and tried to 3-cap, but then he has like a big opener pretty early in the game. So we take a slow push towards our save point. We put expendable stuff, Skaven slaves in front so that his missiles don't do a lot of damage. And then that's the idea. And then we see he summons this Hell Cannon, and this puts us in a tricky spot because he's got now the poke pressure on us. Like, we're not going to be able to outpoke him. And also he has all this cav, so he can probably dive us if he wants to. The one downside is because he summoned the Hell Cannon and has slow infantry, the cav is unsupported. So we could, when you have this arty against you, you can either back up, build up, and then push out and kill them. You can 3-cap and put them under time pressure. Or you can try to outpoke if you can. And in this situation, it's a little awkward because we aren't really able to get his save point. And instead, we decide we're just going to 2-cap and do a slightly unconventional thing, which is like weather the storm on the Hell Cannon. And in this game, we're pub stomping, like playing against non-tournament players. So we observe that he is not always noticing when he's line of sighted. So like here, we've got this like thick tree cropping between the arty and our troops. So we're going to actually just try to tank the arty and hope that he comes in at some point. So the idea is to present like somewhat tempting formations that are still closed enough that he can't actually dive them. And our opponent's actually pretty good for a pub ladder player. That sounds so condescending, but it's accurate. Okay, all right, that's where we're at. And so he's playing this pretty well. Like he's not really getting stuck in bad fights or taking bad engages. He hasn't taken damage on his Hellstriders really. He's trying to get like nice picks with his Burning Head. So he's out poking us, but the thing is, because he's gone so stat light on his build, like he's got a lot of gold in Archaon, who's powerful but doesn't actually kill infantry or our range pieces that fast. His Hell Cannon, all this cav, he just doesn't really have, and we've indexed completely in wide health and damage output. He doesn't really have the ability to take a fight with us. So even though he's getting better poke, we're able to mitigate it pretty well with a combination of like last minute dodges on the hell cannon shots. You can dodge like when they're about halfway down and they sometimes miss. It's not reliable, but it does essentially give you some missile resist against them. So we're dodging, we're line of sighting some stuff, and then we're building up a pretty strong army for the time of the fight. And so even though we think he's going to get 500-600 gold up on us, we're okay with that because we think the stat efficiency of our army will exceed that when it comes time to fight. Now we kind of like try to cheekily cap this point. This is probably a mistake. He's got enough mobility and he's shown us tight play. We should probably just play it a little tighter. We summon in our own Plague Claw, which loses to the Hell Cannon. But there's a cool artillery tactic you can do where you can use this to get some screen over the field. So you like push it up, you shoot stuff, and then if they walk there already towards you, you just back up. And you can kind of play this spacing game where your arty stays out of their range, but still has an effect. Just like a nice trick to use when you're outclassed in an artillery duel. The Plague Claws are pretty powerful. They're very good against Cav, Imp, and they beat multi-entity crews really well, but the Hell Cannon is not super susceptible to that. So we get a nice little pick over there. Still a mistake, though. Like, I think if we played things tighter to the center, we'd be okay. And he decides that our position is weak enough that he wants to go in. Well, this has all been going on. We don't have, like, perfect positioning. We're microing in a bunch of places, but we're trying to keep a situation where the globes are pretty spread out and can cover each other. So he could, in theory, do, like, a gut shot dive right up the middle here. But what he would find is that we'd be able to move something in to slow down the hits on the first globe. The first globe would take out like half a cav on the approach, and then the cav would get melted by the other globes when it got closer. So he goes, here's where the globes absolutely shine. This is fun. I love this unit so much. So you can see, like, we'll just zoom in. You can see he's got a couple cav here, and he's trying to get through and get stuck because we've intercepted with these units. And then we get a volley off, and this is just like good night Hellstriders. And then we use the Lord's Vortex behind them. So there's a lot of pieces here going off. And this should essentially just delete these from the earth straight to the Shadow Realm. This is the fun of globes. Like, look at him go. It's just such a powerful unit. Very Skaven-like. He gets out from a Warp Lightnings, but we were trying to really wombo combo there. Here come the Plague Claws. You can see the damage output is quite a bit of fun here. That was actually mostly coming from our Lord, I think. But the globes would have also melted them. That's Skaven-like overkill. So now you can see, like, on this battlefield, we're in theory down a decent chunk of gold, although it doesn't always count all of the globe hits. But the eyeball test, we're in pretty good shape, actually. We've got, like, all of our damage-dealing pieces are still alive. We've got a lot of counter cav, pretty statty wide build, and he's routed off some cav. So just fast forwarding. He continues to poke. I think if we were to go back to the beginning of this game, what we'd probably want to do is when we see the arty, actually just back up and commit to a buildup, and then go push out and 3-cap him, because he does get pretty good value on this. Unfortunately, his build isn't well situated to counter what we're doing, but if he had the arty and like he was a little more balanced off of the cav early, he could perhaps have poked us for a while and punished. So the opponent summons in this stuff. He decides he wants to go in soon. And we're just keeping like a strong, high damage output defensive formation. Occasionally, checking if he's paying attention, trying to get something on the sides. He is. So the fight begins. We're target prioritizing the things that have the most damage output per health. So Cav first, then Forsaken, then other mobility and elite infantry. And the globes are capable of deleting characters too, so if we get on them, that's good. Here, we get a nice little catch where he's chasing. So the tactic is, like you run your ranged piece behind anti-large, and then you intercept. Pretty straightforward. And then additionally, we're complementing that tactic with a rear charge from the Doomflyers. And the role of that is just to try to hold Archaon down. So far, so good. Globe's doing a lot of damage. And you can kind of see this play like with the Rogers and other infantry, where when they get into the globes with slower stuff, you can intercept Warp Lightning doing pretty good damage. And now, most of his army's routed off. There's definitely some kind of bug here where it's not showing the globe damage because we're really, really far ahead of him on the actual army. Having these on hold position helps. They can rip off some globes when they're in melee. That's a good thing to be aware of. And with the Plague Claw, we want to just kind of point it at different fights because it pops off this contaminated debuff on their things in addition to the artillery debuff. So you can see it gives like a very, very large leadership debuff on whatever it tags and can cause a lot of high quality units to rout pretty early. Like these Marauders just get shell shocked. Also works with Terror pieces if you want to take like a Doom Wheel Wicket or a Terror Lord. Our cleanup crew is a combination of Doom players, Rogers, and Triads. They do pretty well against Cav, unsurprisingly. You want to take charges with the armored ones against unarmored Cav. So like the Doom players eat the charge, the other things do the damage. Triads are actually pretty vulnerable to Cav charges. So you have to be a little bit careful there, but overall good. We overpush with the Plague Claw, but he's pretty dead and is choosing not to concede, which is fine. That's his prerogative. So we're just on cleanup duty here. I'll fast forward. So that's kind of the gist. Like we saw a couple tactics here. The first was he had a very cav heavy opening, so we waited to summon some anti-large stuff and did a slower push. The second was he summoned Artie once we were in range, which was pretty heads up. So we triaged between doing a build up, trying to take all the points, and trying to take a lower point game and just dodge as many of the shots as we could. And that ended up working out. And then we went to the mid game dive, where he showed like a slightly disorganized dive, and we focused a bit on like positioning this DPS overload well and protecting them. So you can see the globes all did pretty well, and they also had health and ammo left, and he was dedicating a lot to try to take them out. The Lord did quite well, so we're getting global debuffs to his army off this, and it's also trading up. Rogers did well. Overall, build did what it was supposed to. We had a lot of stats. He had less stats, so we muscled him out. The Storm Vermin got a ton of value because they caught RK on once. And then the Doom players did meh, fine to good, but that's their role. They're just there to eat cav charges. And then the Chaos Army didn't do great. I wouldn't take these halberds against Skaven, but it wouldn't have mattered. He could have had something else and would have just been DPS'd out. And then the one shining light for him was the Hell Cannon, but it just wasn't doing enough to carry the rest of the army. So hopefully you found that useful. I find these kinds of Skaven builds a lot of fun. Give them a try. Tell me if it works. If you like this kind of content, remember to subscribe. Talk to you soon, nerds.